But then it's like the plus size stuff is like we're not all plus size in the same place.
Yes,
that's real.
They be like, okay, everybody needs plus size. And I'm like, I don't have much going on, so I need.
And whereas I have two twins sitting on the chest. I know. No, I know.
Less. Highly favored.
Listen, have you shot for bras? I'm a social worker.
Y'all know we live, right?
Oh, hi.
Y'all can keep on talking. I was learning. Go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Silence is violence. Keep talking about your life.
Listen, $50 each. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Where?
Yo, when you go Leighton Bryan, when you get the real deal. Even Victoria's Secret, but Victoria's Secret. But
I ain't gonna get love already. Jay Qua.
Who?
Jay Qua.
Jawad. That's my pro. Shout out to Jawad. Hey sis, what's up, Stash?
Trisha Dan. Anyone know Trisha Dan? No? Well, hello. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Woke Wednesdays. Thank you so much for tuning in. We do this every single Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Different topic every week. And this week, we're doing this.
Wine sponsor.
We need wine sponsors.
Today we're
drinking. If y'all got the plug on
really
wine.
white wine,
so
please.
But
you see how a black woman came in and automatically tried to make your life better? We trying to get you sponsored.
I appreciate y'all.
We're being sponsored by Menage a Trois.
I appreciate y'all, man. And y'all can also look at the comments too. I can pass this around, or you can actually look it on your phone. You want to know. But so welcome to Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday. Tonight's topic is violence against black women. We've done 2 episodes on violence against women, and last time Mariama was one of the guests, and she really brought up this point of violence against black women. It's potentially like a different experience. It's something a little different as opposed to just violence against women, and that's when we kind of talked about having this episode. So thank you so much, all of y'all, for coming. Thanks to all of y'all for tuning in. So let's get started. So if everyone could please introduce themselves, tell them who you are, and tell them how you identify racially and how you identify ethnically.
Not it.
Okay, that's fine. My name is Naima. I am a graduate student studying higher education at FIU. I'm from the Bronx.
Hey,
I identify racially as black. Ethnically, I consider myself African American and Caribbean American.
Caribbean country?
Jamaica. There's some other ones in there too, but I'm mostly representing That's like up front. But you know, when we talk about identity, we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
So my name is Imani, and I am an undergraduate student studying sociology, and I identify as a black woman, and but ethnically I identify as Caribbean and an Afro-Latina.
What countries?
Guyana and Belize.
Hello. I'm just saying hi. I'm being sorry. Mariama, black and black. Just
Black and black.
Okay.
It's all black.
Okay. So
unfortunately, slang. Because unfortunately, my people, how we got here. I don't get to know where I'm from. I don't get to know what continent, what country. I don't get any of that. So I just do my best to learn about all of the African diaspora, all of the diasporas of the world, and just tune in to listen from Afro-Latina experiences to what it's like to be African. So I'm just black. I'm here for all the blackness.
I thought Uncle Carson
You
said...
root for everybody black? I'm rooting for everybody black.
Yeah.
I thought Ben Carson said it was like an immigrant thing.
Gosh.
We're not going to go there right now. Okay, we're not going to do that. All right. Andrea?
Hey, I'm Andrea. I racially identify as a black woman. Technically, that can be considered biracial. I don't see it either. Ethnically, the most recent, the strongest thing that I have is the Cuban and Dominican, but I can also add Curacao and Jamaica. I'm Caribbean. I'm the Caribbean. I'm sorry. I am not.
So Naima's getting a lot of love. Someone said I'm here for Naima as well. Jordan, Kathleen.
Oh, what's up, Jordan?
Everybody. Amber's B.
Hey, Amber. Did you promote, girl? I promoted. Hello, baby. I'm black woman trying to make you level up. I'm here for it.
Naima on Caps Lock. Naima, you look amazing.
Who said that?
Amber's B. I mean, you just getting all the love.
I love y'all. Hashtag living for drama.
J-Wa said I'm black. Black too, girl. That's what J-Wa said.
Y'all would really like each other. Hey.
Amber's B said regular black.
Regular day. Those are my crazy friends.
let's get it started. And y'all, this is your first time moving in. Maurice the Third said that's Bae.
That's my boyfriend. Hey, baby.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, you gotta give him props.
So let's get it started. So I'm gonna ask y'all a couple questions, and y'all feel free to ask questions and post comments, and I'll definitely try to read as best as I can to our lovely panel. So first thing that comes to mind, first question that I can ask is, what comes to mind when you think of violence against Black women, and how do you compare that to violence against women? Like, how do you make sense of that?
I'll start. So when you first brought this panel idea up, I had so many thoughts in my head. So I didn't want to think about like the actual physical violence. I wanted to think about like you said earlier, culture. One thing I thought about was, why are Black women seen as the mules of America? There's a reason for that. That's essentially violence. And I think back to like even like Black Girls Rock, or like Black Girl Magic. Those things are happening. Those things are needed because Black women are essentially seen as the muses of the world. That's the violence that, unfortunately, in the 21st century, that's what we're experiencing. I don't know. I don't want to add to that.
I mean, it's funny, just piggyback off of what you said. Yeah, we did mention culture, and then the other thought that came into my head, I'm being Afro-Latina, is machismo. So, but then it's like you're talking about the muses of the country, and so thinking about going back as to what Black women meant in the Western Hemisphere in 300, 400 years ago. I think everybody has to be descendant from one Black woman in their life, because our ancestors were brought over here to lie on their back and make babies. So and then that that violence against women, that violence against Black women has been a culture on the Western Front since it was created. It was colonized. It was not created, but colonized.
I think that for me, like as you said, when the conversation was brought, I didn't think about physical violence against Black women, which is definitely something to always, consider and always care about. But I thought about like the transgressions against Black women, as far as like the fact that Black women are always seen as having to be strong, and that we don't get to be soft. That's a violence against Black women. The fact that we don't get to be damsels in distress. We have to save ourselves from everything, from everyone. And I agree with you on the whole, like, as far as what Black women have been through the years and everything like that. It's like no one really kind of notices the violence against Black women. Like, as much as they talk about like domestic violence or anything like that, like I feel like you never really see it being said, oh, this is happening to Black women, and do we care that it's happening to Black women? It's like it's
accepted.
Yeah.
I think violence for Black women and Black girls shows up in various ways, starting from birth. I think just like our lack of support around bearing children. There are more Black women dying bearing children than there are any other person. I think our existence into this world is violent as fuck. I think that when we get to school, we're told that our hair is inadvertently unacceptable. Amen. That's violence. That it's automatically letting a Black girl know her existence is just a problem. The hair that naturally grows from her head is a problem. It's seen as disruptive. I think the moment we grow breasts and hips, because it's generally faster than most ethnic or other people, we're considered fast. We're considered more sexually, promiscuous. Whether or not we're actually exuding that, whether or not, we're blamed for other people's eyes on our bodies, which is also fucking violent. I'm gonna cuss a lot. I apologize. I think. Matter of fact, always feeling like we have to apologize for being vivacious and boisterous and aggressive or anything. That immediate, it's an immediate thing to apologize for it because of how other people will feel about Black women, and we're always deemed as it's all violent, right? It all makes us feel a way in which turns around as like suppression of our voices and our existence was already as challenging enough to being a woman. And so I feel like those things are very violent, and it starts from childhood until womanhood, because then we have to unlearn and decompress and figure out how to like maneuver in the world, which ends up being more violent. Yep. So it's a lot. That's how it's different.
And it's funny though that it's funny because when we were doing the being a Latina woman is. I did not, I felt kind of like my experiences were completely different from the rest of the panel, but this right here, it's like,
you feel at home.
It's like, understand it. Yes, that's exactly how I'm feeling. Thank you.
So I want to address the point you made, but I want to read some. Is it Jawa? How do you say it?
Joie.
Joie. Okay.
Joie. It's French. Joie.
Joie. Okay. Joie. Okay. Like joy. She said, or hypersexual or hyper-aggressive. Amber's B saying, yes, the hypersexualization is real.
They all know each other.
We apologize for being here. Van is on, giving a thumbs up. Jordan said, don't apologize for being passionate, girls. I think talking to you. Amber's B saying, our existence is made to seem inconvenient.
So friends are smart, y'all. Shout out to y'all.
And if you have any questions, please feel free also to pose to the panel. So where do you experience violence from? Like, is it like certain people that you mostly experience violence from? Is it because there's different places you're experiencing violence from? It could be media, it could be family, it could be how do you think of that? Just
so I want to take off on your point. I definitely feel like it even starts when we're being socialized as little children. Going off of what you said, like there's so many stories. Black women have so many stories of like them playing with like a white friend, and they're like, why is your hair different than mine? Or like, why is your hair not long? Like that's already violence right there, and it continues into puberty, like you said. And even when we're dealing with our own like relationships and black men, our black men abuse and are the biggest, I'm sorry to say this, people that perpetuate violence onto us. And I feel like it's so crazy because black women are so in support of black men, although we have like the whole niggas ain't shit whole thing, but like we're essentially in support of black men, but are they in support of black women? And I don't think that they are.
You know, piggybacking off of that as well, I think that violence against women is perpetuated by everyone. It's like black women, as you said earlier, are the mule of America, but nobody rides for black women the way we ride for ourselves. And I've said this before, nobody cares about our struggles, nobody raises a voice for us. You know, we show up for everyone. If something happens to a black man, we show up. We are the ones who started, we are the ones who initiated, we are the ones who riot, we are the ones who say, hey, this is not right. If something's happening to women, we are the ones who come and say, hey, we need to say something, we need to do something. We start marches, we we support that. But when it's black women, who shows up, who has a voice, who cares? And that's a violence. That hurts that, if something's going on with white women, it's like, oh, let's all care, let's all go and support, let's all go say something. But it's black women and it's like, well, what did she do? How can we figure out how she's really at fault?
And it's funny because the first thing that comes into my mind is like, black women are the ones that have to be strong when our black sons are being buried. Because there's nobody else. There's nobody else. It's like if you have somebody who, and then going on with what's going on now with social justice, the BLM movement, police brutality. It's like, yeah, you have all these young men dying, but unfortunately, a lot of the times, people don't look at their mothers, and it's like they do. It's like, oh, she wouldn't. What was she thinking? Why was she doing this? Why was she doing that? But if it would have been a white mother or even lighter skin, because we're all relatively dark, it would have been like, oh my gosh, but she had so much going on. It's so hard being a single mother, because the thing is, the statistic is there. Black women more than likely will be a single mother, and it's like, oh, when I see media and it's like, oh, y'all always hating on us when it comes to black men, or we're deemed as the mistress to the white man. I mean, scandal. Like why? It's going back to Thomas Jefferson. And then you're talking about mistresses. It's like, no, I mean, it was rape. It was rape. Yeah. And that time it was definitely rape. There was no consent whatsoever. So it's just, and then when you talk about it, when you are passionate about it, oh my gosh, you were so loud. Why are you doing this? But the thing is, we need to unite as black women as well, because you have a plethora of ethnic identities here. We're educated. I mean, not even, it's like you can be street smart, you can have common sense, but the thing is it's like if we keep putting each other down, because then you have like shows like Basketball Wives, you have shows like this, that, and the other, and it's like, oh nah, stop arguing over petty shit. Stop arguing over petty shit. Like, what would happen? The world would crumble the moment that the black women of this planet united, because we literally have to be harder than anybody else, because it's expected. If a black woman, like I forgot who said it, a black woman cannot be weak. If a black woman's weak, it's like, oh, what are you doing? What's going on? And me being a case manager is, And then when it comes to another point, it's literal violence against women. You wouldn't even believe the amount of domestic violence cases that come in, and the majority of them being black. It's like, but that's a culture. It's a culture being back of it. It's crazy. It's frustrating. It really is frustrating. I don't want to go on a tangent there.
Did you have a question you wanted to pose?
We have a couple comments. You go ahead.
So I think the question was like, where do we experience it most? And I think truthfully, I think it feels more everywhere, but I definitely think it develops in the home. But that's just based off the way we're socialized to think about our blackness, right? So like, we have mothers and grandmothers who teach our mothers who then teach us. Mm-hmm. And so we learn all of our shame and all of our guilt and all of our ways to be black women and how to portray ourselves as black women in our homes. Mm-hmm. And then it gets perpetuated as we leave our homes. So straighten your hair, right? Like there was my grandmother was very big on straightening my hair. And I never understood why. It was painful. I hated the hot comb. She was very old school, was like the one that was on the stove. She permed my cousins permed my hair at 3, and it's like, at 3. Yes. But yes. I had a very, but the crazy thing was I had a very Afrocentric mother, right? Mm-hmm. Like I didn't grow, it was weird because like, she was like, don't call your hair nappy. Don't, you know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to be these things. But then I had a family and my mother left often. I lived with the family who was like, no, we gonna actually straighten this hair because you fucking live in Arizona. And what you're not gonna do is go outside and come home hating yourself because you don't fit in, which is awful. That's violent actually, on both ends. So what you're telling me is like, you actually believe that I can be myself in my house, but not really because I have to go in the world. So I feel like, yes, it's mostly like you go to school and you hear all these things, but I felt most attacked in my personal experience at home and then into the world. And you said something, I'm gonna let you do the commentary. Because you said something that was like, girl, yes, and I can't remember what it was, but I had a comment about it. But go ahead.
Amber's B saying, we are expected to come to the defense of black men, but they aren't expected to rise up for us. Maurice, the third said, I love to support black women, but I feel where you're coming from. Amber's B saying, especially if a black man has to call out another black man, that rarely happens. I kind of want to hear your opinions on. There are more comments, but I kind of want to hear your opinion on that. If you could like expound a little bit more on this black men, because I do hear oftentimes, social media, men are trash, and then from like my other female women counterparts, black men are trash, Latino men are trash, just whatever, add in whatever ethnic or racial adjective you want. So it's you kind of talk about it, whatever you think. What are you thinking? And anybody.
Can I just point out, which I always think is funny, is that anytime that we talk about a black woman's struggle, we instantly talk about black men. And so I would honestly, I'm here for this. We can talk about this. But I'm also happy to pinpoint it. Because this is not about them. It's not about their struggle. It's not about how they feel. It's not about our protection of them. It's not about how we give our bodies, our time, our energy to them. It's actually about us. And so as a person, I would like to just highlight that once again, this is a panel about violence against black women, and somehow we have to discuss what black men feel about our protection of them. Just want to throw that out there. No, I'm happy to also talk about it. I'm just saying. I just want to highlight that it happens, and I feel like unless we keep telling them that actually this is not a conversation about you, we'll end up in this situation.
Amen. Because it was like this I don't know, it was a dialogue with Cicely Tyson. And it was just, using the analogy of a ladder. It's like you have white men, white women, black men, and black women are just dangling at the end of that ladder because you're not part of that conversation. You have, and then it's like people were talking, speaking of President Obama, it's like Michelle Obama got so much crap for being a strong black woman.
Oh God, yeah.
This is one of the most educated women, presidents that we've had in eons, and it's like she just got so much, but nobody came to her defense. President Obama got crapped on a lot, but everybody came to his defense, and you're just like, but do you not see this woman who's has to be the first lady? She's raising 2 very intelligent young ladies while her husband's running the country, but you guys want to crap on her? Okay, it happens.
And did so much more than decorate the tables.
Amen.
And she did so much more. And no one loves it. You bring up the Obamas, and I just think it's so funny. As complicated as his presidency has been, I just she was better than is a terrible term, so it's just for a lack of better words. But by all means, she was like the breadwinner. She was more educated. She went further. She was like an actual lawyer, I believe. I could be wrong. When he was still pretending, he was still in practice.
So, right.
And no one acknowledges that. Is that she's like the epitome, right, where we have these conversations about men and like being their spine and their struggle of, you know, and building them and just lifting them up, all while we're still being better than.
Yeah. Amen.
And then we never talk about that. And then we're like subdued to these conversations about how we have to be these resilient women in silence so that they can feel good because of patriarchy and how that shit feels on us. And in order to be like the black woman who isn't complaining, who isn't nagging, but like I'm also gonna run this business because I know you're really not gonna succeed because you're not listening to any of the advice I'm giving you as a person who runs a business. You know what I mean? Like we end up in these conversations, and this is an example, right? Like there are literally black women in their homes right now who have woken up their children this morning, made breakfast, packed lunch, taken their kids to school, done all these things, and someone will want a pat on the back because all they did was go to work.
Oh my God.
And they anticipated like dinner and all these other things because the way patriarchy works, but no one will acknowledge and no one will give her a pat on the back for the list of things that were significantly different and vastly more than what he did. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you. And I think those are ways that violence produces itself in silent ways, right? In which our silence is suffering because we're in these miserable marriages or we're in these miserable situations because we don't want to be deemed as the things that aren't inherently violent to us, right? So like, it's just like it's almost annoying sometimes. It's just like we don't get to win even when we're excelling. We're the most educated people by far, by race and gender. We're the most educated people. We have supplied more businesses, more jobs to people in the last couple years because we're the highest grossing entrepreneurs in this country, and no one will talk about it. And when we do, we talk about it in silos. We must remember that social media is a place where we convene with people that we know and that we get. And so when we're talking about all this black celebration, it is actually only happening within us, within our communities, with our tight groups, because we're not communicating with white people because they're not our friends. We're not talking to them. We talk to them because we have to at work, and we talk to its fluff because we're irritated from all the microaggressions. So there's no real friendship. And then we have these groups, we get to talk about how amazing y'all are. Y'all are dope, right? This is still a conversation with black people and a person of color. I would like to know how many white people have watched this just now. Can we look and see? You know what I'm saying? And so when this information doesn't get out, and there's all these terrible narratives, and we're actually killing it. But you'll never know it. And you can tell it by the memes that we see, by the jokes that we continue to see, by how people regard women, black women in relationships. It's like, are you even awake, sir? Like,
Hashtag WokeWednesdays.
No, it's true though, because and I grew up in a predominantly Latino community. I was not exposed to I wasn't exposed to the black culture until I was in college. Being from Miami, I didn't grow up in Liberty City, I didn't grow up in Overtown, I didn't grow up in predominantly black neighborhoods. I grew up by the airport, which is predominantly white Latinos. So I didn't realize that I didn't appreciate my blackness until I graduated high school and I went away. I went away from Miami, and I was realizing a lot of the things that people said. Especially it's like, oh my gosh, look at your hair. I was like when I stopped perming it and I started doing crazy things. It's like, oh my god, look at your hair. And my mom would always come at me and she's like, oh my gosh, please let me relax your hair.
Oh no.
Because my mom, I showed you a picture of my mom. My mom's Dominican, and the straight hair is with the whole idea. It's like when your hair is relaxed, everybody else is relaxed. And then when I started wearing my hair naturally, and that's from the Chris Rock movie, Black Hair. I was at, good hair.
When it's nappy, they're not happy.
Exactly, yes. And oh my goodness gracious, and it's my black identity comes from my father. And, you know, he sat me down and it's like, he told me, it's like, before I graduated high school, it's like, some people are going to say bad things about you. And I always remember that conversation because I didn't appreciate it until I went to college. And people just look at you completely differently. And then it's when I speak to my white Latino friends and I say, it's like, oh, don't use it. Oh, because you wouldn't believe how many white Cubans think that it's okay to use the N-word because,
of course.
No, I'm a nigga. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, please don't. Please don't. And then it's like when they think of black women, especially in the Latino culture, it's like, oh, you mean like Celia Cruz? Because she's the only Afro-Latina out there, or there's a picture that I posted on here of diverse Latinas, and you had Afro Latinas like Rosario Dawson.
Oh my.
Or what was my girl's name? Zoe Saldana, and I'm sitting there, I'm just like, can I get like a black Viola Davis?
Like,
what's really good though? I'm pretty like, can I get a Latina Viola Davis? Because I'm pretty sure that's not as dark as we get.
Yeah.
That's not as dark as we get. I can attest to that. I'm right here.
Actually,
that's not diverse. That is not diverse. That's from like pale to the nude nude when she hasn't been in the sun for too long. That's what
I feel like I'm probably the darkest Latino that's ever made it to Hollywood, and that's not saying anything at all. Actually,
no, actually it is.
Yeah,
actually it is because then
that's sad.
Because then you have the movie Nina. The movie that they made. Oh my sweet baby Jesus! When I found out that they had cast Zoe Saldana as Nina Simone.
When there are so many black women that look like her.
She literally, this is what Nina did in her grave.
Black women. That's violent. That is.
And you have somebody like Nina Simone, who was one of the biggest
vocal.
Like you're sitting here just like, what are you doing?
It was disrespectful.
They literally blackfaced her to try to get her a couple shades darker, and you're like, there are more black women out there.
There are so many actresses that
you didn't
look
have to,
like her.
Right, you didn't have to use a Dominican woman. You didn't have to. You could have. And then it's like I would have pictured Viola Davis, but it's because unfortunately, she's the darkest woman who's made it out there.
Yeah.
She's she's a great actress, but she's not the only dark actress.
Right.
She's the accepted dark actress because her work speaks for itself. But she's over 50 years old. It took her a long time to get out of that Law and Order. Because you remember she was in Law and Order SVU for a recurring episode.
She's a lawyer, right?
Right, and then she finally broke it into the movies, and it's just like, bruh,
And
we're out there.
Typecasted, which is unfortunate.
It is.
Yeah.
Slightly. How to Get Away with Murder helps her a little.
But even with How to Get Away with Murder, she met her husband because she was her mistress. She was his mistress.
Yeah. Oh, that's real.
She's married to a white man.
Well, he died, girl. He gone.
No, but it's like, it's okay.
I get the point.
I guess that it's gonna be another, like, it's not, I didn't even mind the fact that she was married to a white man. It was just the fact that initially the way that they met was she was his mistress.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, though, it's like, especially in Miami, you'll notice oh my gosh, for a light-skinned man to take you home to their parents, OMG. Like, I have friends of mine who literally say, it's like, yeah, I spoke to my mom, and she doesn't agree that black people should be with white people, they should be in a different, and then I'm sitting there, I was like, and then when people talk in Spanish,
oh yeah, that's a different.
it's like, yeah, don't mind the non-accent, I'm fluent in Spanish, so I sit there and I just watch, I'm just like,
amen.
And then when they find out,
They're like,
they get all nice all of a sudden, and just like, like one instance when I was in Tampa, I was with my homegirl. She was getting her hair cut. She was extremely light, and this woman I think she was from South America somewhere. She was saying, in Spanish, I don't like it when they come into my store. This and that. It's a hair salon. She had a black woman coming out with her kids, and she does a monkey imitation, and then she had the audacity to ask my friend, it's like, can you ask her if she does hair? Because automatically, if you're black, you know how to do braids, right? So if you're a black woman, you automatically know how to do braids. And she was like, well, she speaks Spanish, so you can ask her yourself. The tone changed. I'm just looking at her like, yeah, black women speak many languages. Be afraid.
Very afraid. Well, that's what they are afraid of.
Yeah, they are. So it's a hot mess. Violence against black women is just global.
Yeah.
Let me read some of these comments real quick. Amber's B said, America has never, would never, and could never deserve Michelle Obama, period. Joa saying, the whole idea of these social relationships and expectations are so Eurocentric. Amber's B saying, that goes back to what we were taught in the home. It's safer as a black woman to take the role of playing second. Joa saying, we as a people were never cut from this cloth. Therefore, we run into these challenges because we are trying to put on a pair of shoes that were never designed for us to begin with. Amber B saying, suffering is deemed as admirable when it comes to black women.
My God. My God.
A
word.
Go ahead.
No, read the rest of the comments. I'm just saying that's a word.
No, yeah.
I felt it in my spirit.
Okay. Amber B saying, my mom too, girl. Now she think my hair is cute. And then she started giving Viola her due props because she's been on for a minute.
And they like her snot cries. They're real.
Yeah.
Those things feel real.
Her what?
Her snot cry. When she
Yeah.
cries, she like,
Oh, yeah.
Every time she does it, I'm like, I want to cry just because you look like you mean it.
Yeah, clutches chest and she was like,
oh, what happened? Can I help you?
Jordan's saying, I for one am black and can't braid for shit.
She
can't
Same.
I am saying no. That,
as well.
That's why this is
Yeah,
what
you
it's
know,
doing.
exactly.
Because I can't.
I don't
So
know.
let me ask you this. I do want to ask you this. And we're going to have another episode on this, probably later on. But I wanted to ask you, so we're talking about a lot of this violence, but so what does it mean to be a black woman? I wanted to say this for another episode, but I think it calls for it. What does it mean to you when you think of being a black woman, right? What does that mean to you in your everyday life? Maybe how you've evolved as a child to now a woman. Like how do you interpret this?
It feels like.
And how do y'all interpret it? Feel free to drop the comments. How do y'all feel about this?
It feels like I have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I have to worry about being successful, but not only just successful, but out competing my white counterparts. Then I also have to continue to attain educational advancement. Then I also have to, in my pursuit of educational advancement, I have to make sure that I'm making my points, but not coming off too aggressive.
Amen.
All the while still trying to maintain going to school and working and maintaining my home and being this fly and doing all these different things.
Yes.
So it's one little just circle of worry because there's so many expectations that come with being a black woman where other races don't necessarily have that.
Yes. I think that being a black woman is, as my mom always says about like anything with oppression or any type of like, oh, who can decide who's black or not, who feels it knows it. Being a black woman is everything that you said, and it's like so much more. There's so many ways to be a black woman, but you feel it and you'll know it. You could not, it's not comparable to anything else. There's no other way to be a black woman than to just be one. If you're not a black woman, you would never know what it is to be a black woman, because what we deal with, what we struggle with, the things that we feel, the things that we go through, nobody else can even compare to it, even attest to it, even like comprehend a little bit of it. Because being a black woman is, you know, like you said, being strong. Being a black woman is trying to deal with everything that you have to deal with, but like you said, not come off too hardened. Because, you know, if you're a black woman and you're angry, even though, you know, we have the right to be, shout out to Solange, I have the right to be mad, we can't be mad, because we have to be quiet. We have to be, you know, we have to stay in our place. And that's something that's taught from us since birth. Like, you know, we're not allowed to be this aggressive. We're not allowed to like be like, oh, this bothered me, this hurt me. If we're too confrontational towards men, it's like, oh, why are you so angry? Why are you not trying to uplift the men? Yeah, like it's like if we're trying to care about black women, it's like, why aren't you trying to care about this issue that affects all of us? And it's like, this is a black woman issue. This is a black woman thing. Why does it have to be about black men and white women and everybody else that's not us? This is being a black woman is everything.
Okay. I think for me, being a black woman is a day-to-day struggle to have the confidence to remember that my ancestors are the creators of the world, and so I owe you nothing, and that you are blessed
You need to put that on a shirt.
by my existence. And my very existence alone is survival, it's resilience, it's love, it's peace, it's space, it's culture, it's creating, it's being artistic, it's, you know, being the creator of song and dance and music and a liberator of abolition and like of releasing hundreds of slaves. Like being a black woman it's a struggle. It comes with all these black girl magic innuendos, while also realizing that we still do things to uphold patriarchy, right? It's like these complex identities of like what feels real and what feels fake, and it feels like a continuation of a long struggle of a lot of black women before me. And it's a day-to-day grind to just be happy that I am someone's wildest dream. I am doing things that there are slaves who never would have thought I could have done. They would have never imagined this life. And so sometimes when all of these things, this acts of violence happens, it's just being like, someone died dreaming of me. And I'm okay with your ignorance today. But I'm about to slay your ass.
Oh.
Because
that's literally
that's amazing.
That touched me.
Yeah, no, I can't top that. I should have gone before her, but
silly.
No, I mean I think of history, and I think of the beauty industry, but on history, and I think about it all the time. I will literally sit there and think, dang, what did my ancestors do? If I were 300 years, or if I were born 300 years ago, the beatings, the rape, but you have to continue day by day. Was it masters selling your children? Then you in turn have to raise their children, and it's like these are women that they survived to a very old age, because you see the stories of, oh, she had to be in her 60s, 70s. She's an old woman. She took care of everybody. I'm sitting there, I'm like, dang, these are my ancestors. My ancestors literally had to put up with all this, and they survived. That means that I can survive this. That means that it needs to continue, because no, but it's not that bad. You could just be okay with it. I'm like, I'm not raising my child in a world like this. If I have a daughter, she better believe that she's worth something. She's beautiful. And just because the TV says, oh no, look at this perfect skin, this perfect copper skin or porcelain skin, doesn't mean she's not beautiful. As people are intimidated by black women, people are mortified by black women. And then when you going into the beauty industry, it's like you look at it and it's like, when black women start doing hair, everybody starts to copy.
Wow.
When black women start doing makeup, was it contouring?
We know who that was.
Hi, you see this? It's a natural contour, baby. Who you trying to imitate? Okay? So it's really imitation. You try to imitate, you do something, and then you see those videos like, oh look, you do what's it called? Like 2 braids, the French braids, and I'm like, I mean, black girls are wearing those French braids. It's like you have a style done by a black woman when you gotta twist your hair. Oh my, the twist. Lord, and then all of a sudden you have white women doing the twist, and it's like, look at this brand new hairstyle.
What do
you mean? That's what keeps my hair nice and curly. What are you talking about? What you? I should have been going like that since before YouTube. What are you doing?
Before YouTube.
So it's
legit. It's legit.
It's so much. It's history and imitation. History and imitation, and it's what's keeping us down.
I want to read some of these comments. Joa said, I feel like Superwoman. Like there's something special I have that I'm capable of that only other black women and men can understand, because we are magical.
Wonder Woman has a twin sister. She's actually black.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes.
People don't talk about it. I didn't know that.
They eventually changed the movie.
Jordan Kathleen is saying, being a black woman is a beautiful burden. It's challenging for all of the reasons these ladies address, but when you overcome those challenges, there's no sweeter, prouder feeling. Amber B saying, you have to be Superwoman in a space where your powers are outlawed but needed. You have to practice your magic in secret. Joa saying,
I like that.
yeah, they're dropping gems. Joa saying, there's no one else like us all across the diaspora. We are lit, but that's seen as a threat. Joa saying, magical sorcerers. Jordan saying, we all got accepted to Hogwarts, our fripp.
Y'all know I love me.
Joa saying, because people don't understand it. What's understood doesn't need to be explained. We are energy. Pockets full of sunshine saying, slay is giving me life. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I'll go with that. I'm alright with that.
Carla saying the perception of black women is to be strong and independent we are delicate creatures. I'm not sure if I read that right. There's a lot coming in. That's why I so just spoke the yearning and the ambition. I feel like we owe it to our ancestors. So yeah, there are a lot of comments coming in. So being a black woman is from what I'm hearing, I'll never know.
In the next life.
But it's something. It's tied to power. It's tied to resilience. It's tied to creativity. It's tied to authenticity. To an originator. So, what do you? One day you might have daughters. So what do you think, like, I think some of y'all said like your grandmothers or your mothers like would tell you to straighten out your hair for certain reasons. I don't think it was malicious. It's probably out of love, you know, protection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think, like, the older you become, like, one day you'll have a child, like how do you, like, what comes to mind, like, when you think of these things and what you've experienced and when you would never want your children to experience, like, what kind of comes to mind?
Fear.
Definitely fear, yeah.
You don't want, you think of your little baby girl and it's like, dang, I do not want you to go through what I went through, the words that people call you, just because they don't understand you, just because they're afraid of you, because they've been taught to be afraid of you. And then that's the thing, is like people teaching each other hate. They're not born that way. They really aren't. And then you try to love them as much as possible, but the world says you're meant to be this, you're meant to be half naked, because that's the only way that you're going to be beautiful. It's just frightening. I don't even know what, you know, my dad has 2 daughters, 2 black daughters. I can't even imagine what his mind goes through when it comes to releasing us into the world. But it's just really, you can only do the best you can and teach them to be better, do better than we did. Because we're doing great now, but they still have to do better and not fear the world.
I think, you know, when I think about possibly having black daughters one day, I think about the fact that I have little sisters and things that, like, I've experienced with my sisters, because, you know, I'm a lot older than them, so I've experienced it from them. I've experienced them as more so like an aunt or a mother figure than a sister. So, like, I think about not wanting a future child of mine to feel certain ways that I've noticed my sisters have felt. My little sister is 8, and I remember one day we were watching a movie or something, and we were just like, she was just being a little kid, and she was just like, I don't want to be black.
Ooh.
And that hurt me, because I'm a very proud black person, and my dad's a Rastafarian, and my mom is a very proud black woman. They didn't want me to perm my hair. They didn't want me to do any of that. Like, I have very pro-black parents. So for my sister to say something like that was really shocking. And I was like, why would you say that? And she was just like, basically, she was like, she basically in so many words said the black people in movies or in the show she was watching are always bad. And she's not bad. So she was like, I don't want to be black. And I was just really hurt by that. Yeah. Exactly.
Violence.
Exactly.
Prime examples.
My sister, out of 3 sisters, the one who's 8 has the nappiest hair, and I have another sister who has, you know, that 3C hair, because, you know, I have a lot of stuff in my I have a lot of things in my background that gave her that 3C hair. And everybody's always
3C here. I don't know
it's a haircut. It's a looser curl.
Yeah, it's a looser
curl. It's a looser curl.
It's a softer curl. Like when you brush it, your edges stay.
Yeah, no, I got like 4 different textures you want to talk about.
Yeah, like your edges stay when you brush it. Like it's the curly hair that people are like, oh, and you're like, oh, you have curly hair. That's what they're expecting. They're not expecting naps. So, and my grandma, my grandma was like, she was like, oh, Maya's hair is so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, and Malia's hair is beautiful too. Because you're not, Malia's sitting right there. You're not going to sit here and go on a whole 3-hour tangent about how cute Maya is and make Malia feel like she's just the popper of this conversation. No. And I was like, you're not going to have her feeling negative about her hair. Every time I brush her hair, I'm like, your hair is so beautiful. I love your hair. You are beautiful. You're a beautiful little girl. You're a beautiful little black girl, because I want her to know that she is a black, beautiful girl, even though she's lighter than me, even though, you know, these things that make her feel like, oh, maybe I can separate myself from it because of this or that. I want her to know she is a beautiful little black baby girl, point blank.
I was a teacher for 2 years, and I like to switch up my hair often. My friends know that. I just cut my hair 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Hey, hair. Yes, you know, this is a new thing. You know,
I'm feeling it.
But one thing I do is I go between natural. I go between wigs a lot. And I I want that to be okay. I feel like a lot of times people try to make it seem like, oh, because you're wearing a wig or you want to be like a white girl, and it's like, no, I just want to change up my hair, and you know, sometimes I want some color.
But also, white women wish they could do straight hair and curly hair.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
They do. They definitely do.
But like actually, they wish they was over here.
Right. They can just switch it up like we do. They get a little straight.
Okay.
Sorry. Nope.
No.
Go back.
They gotta wait for the dry season.
Yeah.
No.
But I like to do that, and one of my students came up to me and was like, "Oh, Miss Stenny, your hair is so beautiful." I had a weave, and I said, and she had a little puff, and I was touching her hair, but your hair is even more beautiful, because I feel like a lot of times we like to idolize when someone has a weave or when someone has a wig on, but when somebody's natural, they don't. I know so many times, like, I've been afraid to go out to the club with my natural hair because I'm like, well, I ain't gonna get no attention, because we don't. Let's not act like we don't like male attention. We do, but sometimes I feel like, dang, I can't even wear my natural hair because I ain't gonna get the same attention. But at this point in my life, I'm kind of just like, you know, this is me. You're gonna accept it how it is. Luckily, I have a wonderful person who accepts this. But yes, but I want black girls to understand, especially if I have a daughter or whatever, to understand that it's okay to be you. It's okay to switch between your wigs and your weaves and your natural hair too. If you want to perm your hair, I don't really suggest it. But if you want to do that too, that's okay too. Like, there's so many ways that you can just be you, as long as you're being your most authentic black you.
That part. I think I'm in this stage in my life. I actually just made a post about having children, how my baby fever is attacking my ovaries.
Yo, the baby fever
but
is real.
Thank God for I have healthcare, and so I got an IUD. This is not a thing that's happening in my life. If you'd like to know more about IUDs, I'm happy to talk to you offline. I think women should support each other. That's just a huge decision. Anyway, but in the context of having daughters, or just children, right? Because we live in a world where we have decided that you're born into this earth, man or woman, and then we have people who don't feel like either. So we have trans folks, we have people queer. And so I just feel like we're not ready for those conversations. And so even in the context of like having a daughter, I can have a daughter who physically comes into this earth with biological parts of a female and chooses to be a man. And I personally, in my life, I feel if that's what my child decides to become, that's fine. And so I feel like the world is not ready for that. On top of all the other complexities of being black and thus being a woman, and even developmental stages of like whether or not you choose to become a man, you for a while you're gonna have like a period, and like, you know, your breasts will develop. And I'm a hippie person, I like big stocky dudes. Like, you gonna be big and stocky probably because mommy chose that way. Like, so just realistically thinking, right? I think about all the ways in which the world is not prepared for my child, although I do have some hope that because we're able to have these conversations and because we have access to powerful women who are trans and who are just women or whatever they are, or whether they be queer identified, that I feel like they'll at least be able to feel like they can be themselves in a way that there's a lot of women who've already killed themselves because they didn't get to be that. And to live in their truth, especially when we're talking about such diverse cultures in this space. You know, I know that there's a different context with that when you're Latino or Latina and like living, you know what I'm saying? I told you I'd be trying. And you know what I'm saying? Like, we're just not ready for all the conversations of what it means to be a black woman. And I think that's being a black woman. Being a trans woman is being a woman. And I'm nervous for that. I'm nervous for like the acceptance of whoever they want to be. It's not even just about like feeling confident about hair or physical things. It's like, is this world prepared for women to just be that, however that comes to them? And we're not there. We're not there. Because, you know, we talked about physical features, and I'm like, my identity is so much more than what fucking product I put in my hair this morning. My identity actually has absolutely nothing to do whether I took off my acrylic nails this week because they were hurting. Like, it has nothing to do with that. My blackness, my womanness is so much more. And it's just like toxic masculinity and patriarchy and machismo. It all just like comes down to that. Like, why are we even identifying our womanhood in that?
You are so dope.
And yes.
There you are.
Honestly, thank y'all.
We need to say something.
So let me read some of these comments. Amber saying, my babies will be doing affirmations from day one.
Amen.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Let's see. I want my daughter to have a Moesha face like I did. She deserves. Draw saying Naima, our hairs would initiate our bond.
No, seriously though, y'all. She did my hair. I took out my first. I had glue in my hair.
Oh no.
Yes, I did.
Let me not say uno like I didn't also. I'm not uno like I understand.
Y'all, my profile told me you had to take out that weave, and I said okay. I said, but it's glued in. I took it out. I had glue balls in my hair.
No.
She said, okay, come over. Let me do a little twist out of something to your hair. Yeah.
Hey girl. You saved the sister's life.
Lifesaver.
Kayla's saying, why is your hair different all the time? I guess she gets that. Is what I get from my son's classmates. But I have curly hair and sometimes I straighten it too. Yes, Naima, she better preach. So we have 9 minutes left in this segment. In the next segment, I want to get into something. Yeah, you know how it is. After an hour.
It's your like by y'all.
So I had a student in one of my classes say, I told her you're really smart. You should speak up more often. All right, and she told me no. The way I want to say things, I don't want to come off as the angry black woman.
Oh my God, that was me.
Oh man.
I didn't want to put you out
It's
there.
okay, y'all. It was me.
And I remember the conversation that we had.
He tried to make
it's
that
true.
He thought I did.
Yeah.
Because
I'm asking for a friend.
I'm asking for a friend. Like, because like I always saw like the way like her visceral reaction. I'm like in the way when she said things.
I speak with my face,
Like
not with my mouth.
when she finally actually said things out loud. Ooh, against that. I was like, you're so smart. Like I wish you would speak up more often. And then you told me that, and that just had me thinking. So I was wondering.
Violence.
You go around.
It's violence. It's violence that you feel that way.
Oh my God.
You live your world. You live your world. And the way you said it, like it wasn't the first time you thought about this. Like you live your world thinking that if you're just too smart, if you happen to say something that makes sense, or if you're a little too loud, then you are all of a sudden angry. So how do you like? What do you do in your everyday life?
Tag me in. All right. All right. So I said that to you because in that class, it's a.
You remember that conversation?
Yes, it's a diverse class where you have
always a lot. Yeah, put diverse in the.
We talked about that in class too.
Diverse.
Like, it's diverse, but there's some white people. There's the white Hispanics. Then you have like the black people in one section, and I feel like racial conversations, people have to be ready for that. And I feel like the class was not ready. Oh, it's been more sorry. No, I'm good. No, but I felt like the class was not ready to hear what I had to say. And I know growing up, my mom used to always be like, you need to watch the way that you say things because sometimes people could take it as aggression or people, can take it every which way. So you need to make sure that you're saying it with very little emotion so that your point gets across and not your passion. And I was like, I'll try that. But, I'm a very passionate person. I'm very extra. I'm very, like that's who I am. Right. But the thing is, when you come into a room with people who are not used to that or who are used to, I'm only around, my, white Hispanics. So I'm only around my white people who don't speak that way. It's like, oh my gosh, she's being aggressive. And I'm like, I don't want you to take my passion and think that it's aggression. Take the point that I'm making. And I felt like the class wasn't ready for that. That's why I chose not to speak in class until I felt comfortable. And even when I did speak in class and I was making very salient points, I feel like people were looking at me like, oh, there's the super pro-black girl. And I was like, I don't think y'all ready. So that's why I kind of tailored what I said or kind of just left it to just facial expressions because y'all just not ready.
And the thing
y'all not ready.
With being with Miami, people don't leave Miami. If you have to be the part of the minority, and if you leave Miami, it's for vacation. I went to school outside of Miami. I went to school outside of the state of Florida. I spent a semester at the University of Massachusetts, and then I finished my undergrad at the University of South Florida. But
Great football.
Oh my God!
Let's not talk about
no,
that.
but
anything about anything.
No, but and then it's my classmates, for instance. You have people that the first thing they did was they went to Miami-Dade or they went to FIU and they settled down and then they popped out kids, but then they have the same perspective they did when they had 10 years ago, or they just adopted their parents' perspective. I'm like, bro, you sound like a fucking broken record every single time. It's no. And I get painted as the oh my gosh, you should have seen the post I got when I posted that I was reading the Communist Manifesto. Don't read it. He's a communist.
Oh,
Let's
God.
get in. And I'm just like, bro, read a book. Do me a favor, read a book. and you can't. And I was just like that. And my undergrad and grad school is even in my training for being case management, I always ask questions. I always put in experience or this and that because I want a conversation to happen. But people would be like, oh my God, why are you asking so many questions? Why are you doing this, that, and the other? And then when I shut up and then literally it would put a damper on my spirits. So I'm like, I don't want to participate anymore. I really don't want to participate anymore because people are literally looking at me like,
violence.
Yo, you talk too much or you do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, but then you'd have my professors and be like, no, what happened? Why, like, participate. What are you doing? Because nobody would say.
Work and realize that you're probably the smartest person in the world.
And they'll read it and like, it's funny. I had one presentation in grad school that was titled, my bad, I went to a community college. It's stuff like that. And being usually, a lot of the times, I am the only black woman, especially when I was in grad school. That was it. We were a diverse group, but I was the only black woman in there, and then a lot of the times with my peers, I am the only black Latina all around because especially my relatives, my counterparts, they adapted to the African American culture because it was the safest. I grew up in that community. I didn't realize that I was being attacked until I got older, and I was like, that's not what the hell happened to me when I was younger. So it's frustrating. It's a very frustrating life, but it has to happen.
So we got 3 minutes for Instagram. Kick us off. Go ahead.
No, it's so interesting because when I think of all the times in which I felt like I was going to be the angry black woman before I could speak, one, I felt like I actually had a point that was better than anything. And again, it's not to do this whole like I'm better than, but it's just the reality that my thought process I thought was more of an in-depth analysis on the situation because I actually had the lived experience often. But that anxiety that creates itself within to like speak or to not to speak, or how am I going to reframe it or not reframe it, or if I say it this way it doesn't drill my point home, if I use my hands too much, which I clearly do.
I do it all the time. So.
You feel these things, and that is actually what anxiety is, right? Yes. The over like analyzing it and the thought process, which then turns in often to depression because then you feel unworthy of that space. And I just feel like we don't. It's another thing that we talk about, which is also violent, which is I'm not actually depressed. I actually don't naturally come with anxiety. It's built around your bullshit that you place on me as a black woman and my inability to be able to now speak in this class because you're threatened by it. You've deemed it as I'm an angry black woman, but actually I'm just passionate and articulate. And you can't handle it because your analysis has not reached its level. I'm not anything other than me, and it's a threat to you, and thus now I'm anxious, and I'm going home feeling depressed. Because now I don't feel worthy of this conversation in which I could school all of you in. It's so unfortunate that so many black women go to bed at night after attending college classes feeling unworthy of being in this space because of other people's insecurity. That's actually violent.
Feeling like they can't participate.
It's actually very violent.
Can we tell them to continue to the next one? Because a lot of people may not follow that because this is getting real deep.
Instagram kicks off after an hour.
Oh, okay.
So we gotta end it and then start up again.
Okay, we gotta tell people.
Oh yeah. Tune in.
It's gonna keep rolling.
Yeah.
It's gonna off, and then
so
it's gonna keep rolling.
Yeah, we're gonna end it and then we're gonna start it back up again. You can tune in. Real quick, we have 1 minute left. I want to read these comments. Amber saying, "Girl, I can't fix my face either." Josh saying, "Me neither." Tasha saying, "Me neither." I just want to read some comments. Also, people automatically get on the defense when the topic of race comes up, and when you're on the defense, everything is offensive. Let's see. I'm trying to. Jordan saying they'll never be ready for us, girl. That's why I have to remind myself to speak up regardless. Tasha saying I ain't gonna lie, the hand movements come out too when I'm making my point, but they still ain't ready. Josh saying she's agreeing. Well, everybody's agreeing with Natasha about the hand movements. I think you said it. And people are saying all hands on deck because he was talking. So we're about to get kicked off. We're gonna end it and then we're gonna start it back up again. So make sure to tune in. I do want to talk about dating. What is that like?
What is that? Do we do it? And why?
Make sure to tune in.
Why?